Hello guys, today we'll be talking about the weekend domestic shots and No Time to Die underperforms. As we all know, that means the Phantom Menace is going to be talking about that they were right. Again, all the Phantom Menace does is complain and cry and complain. Okay? No Time to Die again is wanting a 4-day weekend. Which again, the Phantom Menace will of course ignore because they're gonna say, oh yeah, No Time to Die is a flop. This is a warning from us to you to not ruin James Bond, quote unquote, ruin the series. He's locify the series or blah blah blah. Even though everybody has said the movie is very good, nope. If it doesn't please the Phantom Menace, they'll basically boycott the movie essentially. If it doesn't please them, they'll tell you don't watch the movie because we don't like it. That's essentially the typical Phantom Menace. Okay, that's the typical thing that they usually do. And it used to be the critics. It used to be the movie critics. If the movie critics didn't like a movie, it was basically dead toast for that movie. And once that movie gained a certain cult following over the years, if the movie critics didn't like it, then therefore, it was gonna be a flop. Okay, if they didn't like it, then no one would watch it essentially. But now it's basically if the Phantom Menace doesn't like it, it's gonna flop, which is what we're seeing here. Movies like Snake Eyes, movies like No Time to Die. Yes, it's breaking records in the UK and other countries, but the Phantom Menace doesn't really have influence in Europe compared to America. Considering that the videos get hundreds of thousands of views on each of the channels, those one's got to say how much influence do they really have. But we're not gonna talk about the Phantom Menace here. We're talking about No Time to Die's box office, which has a $250 million budget. The movie is currently at $313 million worldwide. Again, James Bond has always been an international character. He has not really been much of an American character. But this movie should be performing similar to movies like Skyfall and Spectre. But again, thanks to the Phantom Menace, it's only at $56 million. Thanks to the Phantom Menace, which again, they're the ones who praised Venom when it came out. And I'm sure Venom is probably a good movie, but the overpraisal of the movie is just hilarious. And then but days before they were complaining about how it was too gay for them. Remember that? It was too gay. Venom was too gay for the Phantom Menace. Yes. Absolutely ridiculous. Yes. And it really shows that you can't really trust them as movie critics. Because they want everything to be like the 90s. Just like, many others. And the 80s. Acting like those are the greatest eras of all time because they grew up in the 80s and 90s. And No Time to Die opened with 314 million, is now 314 million worldwide, so it needs to make around 500 million worldwide. And it's currently at $190 million loss. So it only has beat movies like, Space Jam and probably beat Jungle Cruise. But it really depends on how well does Riggs rise in America. If it continue, and of course, the first 2 weeks, and when it comes to international box office, it does really well like its first 2 weeks. But typically, it usually declines afterwards. But yeah, No Time to Die. Yes, it's disappointing domestically, but it's doing extremely well internationally. So, yep. Next is Venom Let There Be Carnage, which again, it's the international opening is not coming out until the 15th, but the movie's already gonna make back its money by the end of the next week. So, once it opens like everywhere else next week, it will likely continue making money. $185 million worldwide currently. But again, they're gonna say, oh, it's not doing well internationally. It's gonna bomb internationally. No, that's because it hasn't released in most countries internationally. It has released it's mostly from Russia and Ukraine and other countries, like South Korea. Yeah. It hasn't released in Europe, most of Europe yet. Which, yep, Europe is now starting to watch movies again. The international box office is apparently starting to come back, at the very least. So, Venom: Let There Be Carnage is probably going to end up being a success. No Time to Die is going to probably end up being a success as well. Well, as much as the fandom ass doesn't like to hear that. Next is the Addams Family 2, which, yeah, no one really cares about this movie. It has the same budget as the first movie, like $20 million or so. It's gonna probably make its money back. It's a Halloween movie. It's gonna have ratings for October month, by end up around 60 to 70 million in basically, and it's gonna do basically like basically slightly worse than the first movie, which wouldn't be too surprising considering the fact that the first movie wasn't really well received to begin with, and the fact that this movie is doing this well, considering the first movie wasn't really well received, it's doing better than movies like, The Boss Baby, it's doing better than, Peter Rabbit, despite not having extremely good ratings. Actually, it's now ended the good ratings, it's now having good ratings, but because, of course, it's an October release, well, it's gonna probably have better ratings than both The Boss Baby and Peter Rabbit, because of its holiday releasing. So, Addams Family 2 will probably continue to rig out throughout October. Not too surprised there. Next is Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi is past $400 million worldwide. Yep, the Phantom Menace was hoping this would flop, but the audiences have spoken and the Phantom Menace has lost, essentially. It is performing similar to movies like Doctor Strange domestically. Again, because it didn't really do too well internationally. Yeah, it didn't really do too well internationally compared to other Marvel movies because of lack of Chinese release date. But yeah, the Chinese box office really is probably the reason why this movie didn't make 600 to 700 million, because Hollywood and China are not really the best of friends right now. They're not really. And Shang-Chi is another example of this. China needs to stop trying to pander towards China, the Communist Party of China, and I think they'll be better off without them. Next is The Many Saints of Newark, another flop by Warner Brothers. No surprise. No one wants to see this movie, essentially. It is a big, massive box office failure, essentially. The Many Saints of Newark is a massive box office failure. So, yeah. Next is Free Guy. Yeah, this movie, there wasn't really anything new. Free Guy has made $42 million, which, for a movie that isn't based off any franchise during a pandemic, is very good for any movie. Again, this movie was originally projected to flop. It was projected to fail. This movie was projected to be a complete box office failure because really we don't really have any faith in non-franchise films anymore. That's just the sad reality. Look at Dear Evan Hansen. No one's watching that. But again, I think musicals are not really doing too well in general this year. But the fact that we don't really have faith in non-franchise films really shows how far we have gone. The fact that only movies that we watch now are franchise films, and everybody's saying that Free Guy is a breath of fresh air compared to the countless franchise films being released. I know Free Guy is probably based off like some book or something, and blah blah blah, and someone will probably bring that up. But it isn't really based off any existing movie series. It isn't really based off anything else. It is a entirely new thing. And I think Hollywood needs to stop making stuff like that again. Some of Hollywood's best series, some of Hollywood's most iconic series, are not based off anything. Okay? Yes, you have stuff like Marvel, The Hunger Games, those are based off books, comics, and stuff, DC movies. But most things are, Hollywood should really make more series that are not really based off anything that isn't Oscar bait. I think Hollywood would be very pleasant if they actually marketed something like Free Guy. Was they did, or something like Knives Out, which came out a couple years ago, made by Ryan Johnson, which was a completely original idea. But yep, here we go about Free Guy. $322 million. It is basically dead at the domestic box office, essentially only making $1.3 million. And of course, we have back to the flop called Dear Evan Hansen. Listen, this movie is a flop. I know people get angry at this for me saying this. People gotten angry at me because I said this movie's a flop. It is. It's a flop. A bona fide box office failure. And people are just so defensive of this movie for some reason. I just don't get why. It's a flop. It dropped 67%. It dropped 60% its third week. And of course, the Dear Even Henson fans are gonna probably master strike this video like the other ones where I said this movie was a flop, but it is a flop. Look at the ratings of this movie. I know Dear Even Henson fans are not gonna listen. They are gonna protect this movie like it's the greatest movie of all time, like it's the next Shawshank Redemption. But it isn't. It's a flop, and people didn't really care for this movie. I wish they would realize this at the end of the day. But yeah, there you go about Dear Even Henson. And yeah, the boss series also finally starting to release internationally as well. Well, and like Germany and stuff, it's at 55 million internationally. It will probably be soon out of the domestic feeders, essentially. It is not really doing as well as the first movie. The first movie was a super hit. It has not released in Australia, Germany, Italy, Japan, and other markets so far, but it will likely start making money in the remaining markets. I'm gonna stop really checking in on this movie's total box office. But yeah, that's basically it about this video. Goodbye.